Hello and welcome to another episode of Living Well with Dr. Mike. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Cockrell, and I want to thank you so much for being here with me today. Today, I want to continue our discussion about vitamin D. If you've been following along, then you know that I just recently made a blog post entitled Do You Need to Be Taking Vitamin D? And you can find that blog post at my website at www.livingwellwithdrmike.com. Today I want to continue that, and we're going to be talking about some of the signs that you may notice in your body if you actually have a vitamin D deficiency. Now, if you remember from the last episode, we talked about the fact that vitamin D is so incredibly common in the United States, but a lot of the people I talk to in my clinical practice, they believe that they don't have to worry about it because they are consuming vitamin D fortified foods such as milk and bread and other products. However, there are only a very few foods that can actually have any kind of therapeutic benefit on your vitamin D level. And even those fortified foods don't contain enough vitamin D to support most people's optimal needs. So, what I wanted to do is just sort of give you some ideas in this podcast about things that you could be looking for to determine whether or not you might be deficient. Now, before the year 2000, most physicians really paid little attention to vitamin D. And part of that was there wasn't a ton of research out there that supported a lot of information about vitamin D. But more importantly, we really didn't have any good tools to actually be able to test vitamin D. Since that time, we have developed therapeutic testing, very inexpensive testing that's become available. And so it's much easier now to determine through a laboratory study just where you're at with your vitamin D. And I would encourage each and every one of you to ask your physician to check your vitamin D level. It's just that important. So today I'm reviewing an article that was written by Dr. Mercola at mercola.com. And he's really summed this up. And I'm going to just share the 7 signs you may be vitamin D deficient that Dr. McCullough included in his article. You know, again, the only way to know for sure if you're vitamin D deficient is via blood testing. However, there's a few things you can sort of look for that may give you some insight into whether or not you may actually have a deficiency. Number one, you have darker skin. African Americans, Asian Americans, American Indians, Polynesians, people with darker skin are at a greater risk of vitamin D deficiency. And the darker your skin, the greater that risk. Because if you have dark skin, you may need as much as 10 times more sun exposure to produce the same amount of vitamin D as a person that's really pale. You know, pigment acts as a natural sunscreen, so the more pigment you have, the more time you'll need to spend in the sun in order to get adequate amounts of vitamin D. Number two, if you feel blue down in the dumps, sad a lot, you may have low vitamin D. Serotonin, which is a hormone that's produced in the brain and associated with mood elevation, rises with exposure to bright light and it falls when there's decreased sun exposure. Now, I think a lot of us feel this episode during the winter months as the days get shorter. We'll have this sort of blues. Over the winter, we get sort of typically less motivated, less energized, and a lot of that has to do with sun exposure. Seasonal affective disorder, that's another discussion we'll have later on in more detail, but just suffice it to say that in a study done in 2006, scientists evaluated the effects of vitamin D on the mental health of 80 elderly patients. And they found that those with the lowest levels of vitamin D were 11 times more prone to be depressed than those who received healthy doses. So just suffice it, if you're feeling a little down in the dumps, you may want to boost your vitamin D. Number three, if you're 50 or older, as you get older, your skin doesn't make as much vitamin D in response to sun exposure. At the same time, your kidneys become less efficient at converting vitamin D into the form used by your body. And so, older adults tend to spend more time indoors. They get less sun exposure. They're less efficient at converting the sun that they do get. So, they are prone to having lower levels of vitamin D. Number four, you're overweight or obese, or you have a higher muscle mass in general. Vitamin D is a fat soluble hormone like vitamin. That means that body fat just sort of acts as a sink or a vacuum. It sort of sucks it in and stores it. And if you're overweight or obese, then you're going to likely need more vitamin D than someone who is slimmer because you naturally don't have access to it as much. It's stored inside the fat cells, and you don't get access as readily as someone who is thin um, and has the same sun exposure. So basically, um, if you're overweight, make sure that you're checking your vitamin D. It tends to also help if you actually are deficient in vitamin D and you're working and striving to try to lose weight. I've had great success with people on vitamin D feeling more energized, more you get more of a perk in your step, and that is something that actually helps you shed some body weight if you get moving. Number five, your bones ache. Um, Many of the people who see their doctor for aches and pains, especially in combination with fatigue, end up being misdiagnosed as having fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, and they may truly just be vitamin D deficient. So, if you are experiencing any of those muscle aches, muscle soreness, bone aches, and you've been told you've had fibromyalgia or that you have chronic fatigue, be sure that your physician has checked your vitamin D levels so that you know for sure that you're not just dealing with a vitamin or a nutrient deficiency that's significantly aggravating those problems. Number six, head sweating. Now, this is actually a symptom that I was surprised to hear because I've had people in my clinic who have had this problem and I never really know what to do with it. So, according to Dr. Hollick, which is one of the leading researchers in vitamin D, one of the first and classic signs of vitamin D deficiency is a sweaty head. In fact, physicians used to ask new mothers about head sweating in their newborns for this very reason. Excessive sweating in newborns due to neuromuscular irritability is still described as a common early symptom of vitamin D deficiency. So if you notice that you truly, when you sweat, you just get profusely sweaty on your head, that may be a sign that you are vitamin D deficiency, and it would warrant getting your levels checked so those levels can be optimized and you can be working on improving your health care. And finally, number seven, you have gut trouble. Remember that vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. That means if you have a GI condition that affects your ability to absorb fat, you may have lower absorption of fat soluble vitamins like vitamin D as well. This includes gut conditions like Crohn's disease, celiac disease, non celiac gluten sensitivity, and any other inflammatory bowel disease. So, if you have any of those conditions, you may want to actually get your physician to check your levels so that you can optimize your vitamin D and improve your health. If you remember from the last episode, we talked about making sure that when you're testing, you get them to test vitamin D, hydroxy vitamin D level in your bloodstream. And when you supplement, you want to use a good quality vitamin D3, and you want to make sure that you're at least getting some vitamin K2 in your diet. Now, that's pretty easy to get through meat, chicken, eggs, those kind of things. And you can also find vitamin K2 in many of the multivitamins that we use. So, optimizing your vitamin D is going to optimize your health. We know from previous discussions vitamin D plays a big role in cardiovascular disease such as hypertension, atherosclerotic heart disease. It increases your risk of heart attack and stroke when it's low. A ton of things that go on from a cardiovascular standpoint. Low vitamin D levels has been associated with autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis, inflammatory bowel diseases. Vitamin D is a very potent immune modulator, which means it's very important for the prevention of autoimmune diseases. It's decreased vitamin D increases your risk of infections, including influenza. Listen, this is very important because a study done in Japan showed that school children taking 1,200 units of vitamin D per day during the winter reduced their risk of getting influenza A infection by about 40%. So, my personal opinion is it's far more prudent, safer, less expensive, and more importantly, far more effective to optimize your vitamin D levels than to get vaccinated against the flu. And then finally, vitamin D plays an important role in DNA repair and metabolic processes. So, being able to optimize your body's ability to handle the normal breakdown processes that happen, improving DNA repair, helping with auto oxidation, you know, all of those things have implications for aging and cancer, boosting your immune system and many other biological processes. The more we can keep our system optimized, the healthier we can be. So listen, I hope this information is beneficial to you. I hope you will not only listen and hear what I'm saying, I hope you will take the information that I'm giving you, put it into action. The very least you need to do is at least get your vitamin D level checked. Follow up with your primary care physician, follow up with your nurse practitioner, your healthcare professional, whoever you are using. Get that level checked, see where you're at, and then start working toward achieving an optimal level of vitamin D. And it may amaze you how much that improves your day-to-day health. Take care. I look forward to seeing you. I will give you one little tidbit. If you enjoy the episodes that I'm presenting here and you want more information, if you'd like to find all of my podcasts, all of my information on healthy living that I am doing, and you want to find it in one spot, you can be sure to visit my newest online classroom. That's Living Well with Dr. Mike, the online course. You can find it at www.doccockrell, DOCCOCKRELL.com/living well. I have created an online course where I am putting all of these episodes and I'm sorting those and organizing those by category so that they are easy to access and you can readily see everything in one spot. So I look forward to spending more time with you through the podcast, through my blog, and through my online courses. And until then, have a great day.